Thanks for staying with us. Last week, the United States fell subject to 3 terrorist attacks within a 24-hour period, leaving a panicked nation to wonder if they were connected and if there were more to come. Henry, what do you have to say about last week's events?
Well, it doesn't surprise me of what we have going on in this country. I think there's a vacuum of leadership that is dealing with allowing terror to propagate, and we're not dealing with it. When you sit down and you look at the mayor, Bill de Blasio, going in and saying, oh, don't jump to conclusions, it was pretty evident right when the stuff started hitting the news channel that we had some terrorism going on. It started in New Jersey, went to New York, and then over into Minneapolis, I believe. So it's a problem, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon until we start to sort of toughen up how we do some approaches.
Danielle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. And the question this week has been, is it tied to ISIS or is it an isolated event? Personally, I think it is, probably indirectly. They haven't, staked their claim in this, but as evidence has been revealed in the past few days about it, thank God no one was killed in these events. You're going to attack New York City. They are the most resilient citizens in the U.S. And if you see some footage of things rolling after the events, everything's back to business as usual. And so I don't think they're too surprised by it as well. I think this was a copycat terrorist attempt. Once again, they're just inspired by other acts that have happened. What do you think, Ron?
Good talking point for politics for today, Henry.
You're welcome.
But I don't agree. Okay.
I didn't expect you would.
No. There are far more people killed in the last couple of days over other hostile things than.
That's because we were very fortunate from the terror attack.
Than what ISIS did. I think there needs to be a total overhaul of the whole system of law enforcement in our country. And as police begin to train different, as police begin to do things different, as we look at everything is going to be a terrorist attack in ISIS. ISIS is going to be gone, and there'll be somebody will fill in for ISIS. And then somebody will fill in for that, same as he did when you got bin Laden.
Exactly.
When the guy that's in there now that's running things for ISIS is gone, there will be another.
There's 3 more waiting to take his place.
So just to say there's a vacuum of leadership, where's the leadership for everything else? Like I asked the chief of police, why does the city council have to deal with terrorism, not terrorism, but heroin? Why does the city council have to deal with other things when you have a police chief and a police department? That's what their jobs are. Maybe the problem is you put too much emphasis on political leadership to deal with law enforcement issues. So what does law enforcement really need? And when will that take over and be changed?
Well, I think one of the issues that we're really facing is we're going to have to evolve into a new society because things in this world changed on 9/11. And terror has come to our shores, and they weren't Syrian immigrants that caused these attacks. They were naturalized U.S. citizens. And whether ISIS claims responsibility or not, or a given religion or not, we shouldn't take a broad brush and say, oh, well, all Muslims are bad because of this. Unfortunately, if we look at the names associated with it, then it causes us to sort of be judgmental. Where we have a problem is we have a federal system and we have our local state system. The FBI only has so many agents. And they need to be able to coordinate better with our local police forces to empower them and communicate of what's going on. And the city of New York was very fortunate that they didn't suffer any deaths through this. New Jersey was very fortunate that they didn't suffer any deaths. What we have to do, though, is have better management of our resources and better cooperation through all levels of our government. I think at some points the federal government impedes the efforts on the state level, and we also have the inverse, that the state level sometimes impedes the work that the federal government does. So we need people to get beyond our political barriers and move forward to solving our problems.
Janice, how do you fit in on this?
I'm more trying to figure out what's the solution to this. You know, it's more of, okay, how do we detect these things in advance, and how do we figure out what's going on and come up, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's how do we operate, how do we put things in place to prevent things like this happening? Because, you know, I've had discussions before where our security, homeland security, law enforcement, they have to be right 100% of the time. And, you know, it's just like cybersecurity, and it's just like dealing with malware or ransomware or somebody trying to do a data breach and break into your system and steal something. They are constantly attacking and testing your systems 24/7, 365. It's the same thing with terrorists.
Yeah.
Whether they're in-house, they're in-country, or they're out of country, they're trying to attack. So we have to be right 100% of the time in order to prevent any kind of attack happening. And so I think maybe it's taking a step back and figuring out, what do we need to do? And what do citizens need to do to help to contribute to that prevention method?
You know, Janice, as you're talking about IT security, that was also a subject last week, and what we were debating there was being proactive or reactive in handling these situations. And this is such a unique thing here. Is this guy came in, you know, that caused the bombings this past week. He came in here in the U.S., became a naturalized citizen. He was a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil. He was 9 years old when he came here. Went back to Pakistan, and you know, we assume that's when he became radicalized and came back to the U.S. and that's what happened. So just to your point, I mean, it's a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil, and as we're facing the new election and talking about immigration and national security, how do we control something like that when it's someone coming into our country at such a young age? You know?
And when somebody goes out of country in that situation, if they were here and then they suddenly go out and then they come back, should there be some kind of interview process? Should we be worried about that? Because, you know, how many hundreds of people, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are doing that very thing on a daily basis? And they're going back to their home country and then coming back here, they're naturalized citizens. We don't need to worry about every single one of them. But it goes back to Ron's point of overhauling the whole system. You know, I mean, my whole thought is the entire system from A to Z for the federal government needs to be overhauled. It's kind of like due diligence and review it all. It's like continuous improvement, lean improvement.
That's a very good point.
Any last thoughts?
I think you did it.
Alrighty, that's all we got time for. Up next, this week's election update. Stay tuned.